On today's second edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, we've got a lot to get to. I'm going to fix Major League Baseball. We talk about the enigma that is Kyrie Irving. Plus, of course, we got to start with the latest, as there's news every day on Deshaun Watson. That's all coming up right here on the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Yes, I am dancing. I know. And here's the thing. Yesterday, we did the first podcast. I said we, like there's anybody else here. I'm doing it by myself. I got a lot of help behind the scenes. My man Anthony and Mike from UCSS. And I hope you're watching the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. If you're not, you're missing some really good stuff. Today's going to be great. We got Brian Hartline. We got Josina Anderson. So it's going to be great. But yesterday, I was doing the podcast as if I'm on TV. And some of you are watching the podcast on YouTube, but obviously a lot of you want to listen to me like you did when I was on the radio. And I was like, I got to just treat this really more like a radio show, and that most of you will just be listening and not watching, because I'm like talking about them on background and I'm pointing to stuff. And I was like, wait, listen, you did radio for 20 something years. You should be used to that. But anyway, I get up this morning. Before we do that, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. I get up this morning, I'm looking around, and of course I'm like, okay, well, what's the latest on Deshaun Watson? Because let's face it, it's pretty obvious. That's what most of us care about. When is this going to get settled? How many games will he miss? Is he going to miss the whole season? And obviously the talk has been trending towards him maybe missing the whole season. I have been convinced all along that this is not true, and that this is one giant ploy from the NFL just to look tough. Now, again, I could easily be proven wrong. All the wind is blowing that I'm wrong. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know why I can't wrap my head around the fact that they're going to suspend him indefinitely, but that's the word that keeps coming out. So the latest, of course, this is from Mary Kay's column this morning. I saw Mary Kay last weekend. We recorded an episode of Garrett Bush's Barbershop show. We had such a good time. It was good to see Mary Kay. It's the first time I'd seen her in a while. And I'm just going to read you the first paragraph of her column that she put out. She actually put it out late last night. The NFL has informed Deshaun Watson and his camp, the NFL Players Association, and disciplinary officer Sue L. Robinson, that it recommends an indefinite suspension for Watson without pay for at least a year, sources confirmed for Cleveland.com. This obviously backs up an article written by the Wall Street Journal yesterday, or maybe Sunday, in which they suggested the same thing, and Mary Kay and her sources now confirm that as well. Now, this all may be true, right? I mean, very likely is that they're going to recommend. Now, are there talks behind the scenes about what they? I just don't see how it ultimately benefits the NFL to have Deshaun Watson suspended for a calendar year. But I will say this: even if it's going to be easy for other fans and the national media, and I'm not a guy who's like, oh, the national media, blah 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 blah. There's guys I like, guys I don't like, women I like, women I don't like in the national media. I don't like to lump everybody together on that kind of thing. But I get it that everybody, it's easy to pile on the Browns. And if Deshaun Watson is suspended indefinitely, they're an easy, I can't even clear my throat today. Sorry, I just busted your eardrums with my throat clearing. I don't think I ever did that in 20 years of radio, but now I'm doing a podcast. All of a sudden, I can't clear my throat. I don't know what's happening here. There you go. So it is possible, right, that this is going to happen. But here's the thing. Like, when everybody starts to crap on the Browns, as they've already done, and the Browns as an organization, they've deserved a lot of the hits they've taken over the last bunch of decades. And maybe in the long run they will deserve this too. The problem is that after living here in Cleveland now, it'll be 11 years on August 18th that I'm living here. What I learned quickly, and when anybody that's new to the area learns quickly, is that, and this is why Cleveland is such a great sports town. And I shouldn't just say Cleveland, the whole Northeast Ohio area. But the reason it's such a great sports town is because everybody takes it personally. Unfortunately, when one of the teams is being dragged through the mud, deserved or not deserved, fans take that personally more than they do other places. And because sports are so personal, especially the Browns, to all of you, I love that about the fans here. I think that's what makes this city and this area so attractive. Well, not the only thing, but one of the things that makes this area so attractive. But the downside is that when people are ripping the team, it feels like a personal attack on the fans and you, which I don't think most people that will rip the Browns or whoever mean it that way in most cases. But that's just how it comes out, and I get that and other people, like if you grew up in other places, and there's probably some other cities that are like that, but I think Cleveland's pretty unique, and Northeast Ohio is pretty unique in that way. And so when the crap storm starts hitting the Browns again, which it already has been, and to some degree deservedly so, and certainly over the last 30 years, there's been a lot more times where they deserved to be beat up. But people take it personally. It feels like you're being attacked personally, even if you're not. And I get that. But here's the thing. It's going to be easy for people to say the Browns made a huge mistake if Deshaun Watson ends up getting suspended indefinitely. And that may be true. But when you trade 3 first-round picks and more to get Deshaun Watson, that's not a trade just for this year. Now, I'm not saying it's a good thing. It's a disaster for this year. It is a disaster for this year. There's no way to sugarcoat it. If the Browns starting quarterback is Jacoby Brissett for this season, because I'm not doing this Baker thing anymore. We're still talking about it on UCSS a little bit. I'm not doing it here because Baker's not going to play for the Browns. That ship has sailed. We know that. Okay, so if Jacoby Brissett's going to be the quarterback next year for the whole season, then the Browns basically have no chance to make the playoffs. Now, could it be somebody else? Could it end up being Jimmy Garoppolo or Sam Darnold or somebody else? I guess it's possible. Jimmy Garoppolo is the only guy it could possibly be if Watson's suspended for the year that I could see any chance of them making the playoffs. And even with Garoppolo, as much of a winner as he's been, and I'd give them a chance, I still think because the AFC is so tough and this division is so tough, I still think they wouldn't have a great chance to make it. I'd give them a reasonable, a shot with Garoppolo, but not with Brissett, not with Darnold, not with, I don't know, whoever else you can think of at the moment, if Watson's suspended for the year. So, and yes, and you got some big contracts. Obviously, the Browns are spending a lot of money in some key spots, and those guys are going to get a year older, and that hurts. And in the long run, yeah, maybe if he is suspended indefinitely, and what if the suspension is more than a year? Then it becomes a long-term disaster potentially. But if you told me before the trade that Deshaun Watson was going to get suspended for a year, and then you'd have him for the next decade after that, and listen, there's no guarantee they'll have him for a decade after that. He may want to go somewhere else. Who knows? But usually, if good quarterbacks, if they're playing well, stay on the teams they're at. They don't leave that often. So I'm going to assume that if Deshaun Watson does come back, say he misses all of this year. I still don't buy that, but let's say it happens. Let's say he misses all this year. I don't know what's going on in my throat today. But let's say Deshaun Watson misses all this year. If he comes back in 2023 and plays for a decade, was it still a bad trade? Now, if you told me he wasn't going to play this whole year, I still would have traded for him. You probably could have given up a little less if you knew he was going to miss an entire season. But the reality is the Browns knew there was going to be some suspension when they made this trade. Now, they might have assumed it would be somewhere in the 4 to 8 range and not a full season. And if you knew it was a full season, yeah, maybe you would have had to give up one less pick. I will never know. In the long run, though, if Deshaun Watson plays 6, 8, 10, 12 seasons for the Browns and they win and they maybe even win a Super Bowl. I know it seems so far-fetched with everything going on right now. All the screaming and yelling about how stupid a trade this was goes away, and those people will feel stupid in the long run. So, and we'll see how it shakes out when it's all said and done. But it's hard to be patient. As a Browns fan, you've been patient for a long time. You've been asked to be patient for a long time. And now you finally, and the frustrating thing is you had a decent quarterback in Baker, and he was the best quarterback you had in a while, and you thought you had a good future. I did at one point too. You realize last year, at least I did, and I think many people did, Baker's not good enough in this NFL. You know, you could have won with a Baker Mayfield, I think, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, if you had a great team around him. In this NFL, I don't think you can win with Baker. I've made that clear. I know some people think you can. I guess time will tell, right? If he can do something somewhere else. But you finally, and then you take that next step forward to the even better quarterback, but there's a lot of controversy surrounding him. There's reason to be depressed about the acquisition. There's a lot of question marks about off the field. It's hard to believe he's completely innocent. We don't know what all the truth is. We don't know how it's all going to shake out. So it stinks. You finally, as a Browns fan, you're like, we got an elite quarterback for the first time in forever. I mean, Deshaun Watson is probably the most talented quarterback the Browns have ever had, but we have no idea when he's going to play for them. It is quite frustrating. All right, good. Take a break. When we come back, though, I got to talk about Kyrie Irving a little bit, because it's just such a crazy thing. Like, well, I'll get to it when we come back. That's all coming up right here on the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. Folks, betonline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. And we all know that finally Ohio woke up and did the right thing. Our state reps, who a lot of them lost in the soup. But finally, they did the right thing, and they made gambling legal. It'll get going in January, of course. Too bad it didn't happen sooner. But it's an exciting thing, right? Choose to gamble. Should be your right, and now it will be. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including the playoffs, Major League Baseball, anything you want at betonline.net. And betonline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. A lot of good stuff there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, we're back. And I got to talk about Kyrie Irving today, because last night, Kyrie opted in to the final year of his agreement with the Nets for $36 million, I think it was, whatever it is. You know, when the Cavs first drafted Kyrie Irving decade plus ago, I think in Cleveland we were all excited. I know I was. I was really excited moving here and Kyrie Irving and all that. It was just, it was an exciting time. And the Cavs were a bad team. And, he had friction with Dion Waiters. But you knew that Kyrie was a special talent. And watching him was a great joy, I think, for all of us. Even when the Cavs were bad, there was so much joy in watching Kyrie Irving, because you knew you were seeing something special. That he was a special talent. And as the years have gone by, and certainly, he was a huge part of why the Cavs won the championship. Hit the big shot. He just did so many, we loved him. The Cavs win the championship. The drought in the city is over. The parade was mind-blowing. It was a great time. 2016 was a great year. It was the most fun year in Cleveland. I mean, at least in my time, and I'm sure for many of you, so many people are Browns first that there's other years. But in recent years, between the year that they had and the year that the Guardians had, 2016 was a remarkable year that I will never forget till the day I die. And Kyrie was a huge part of it, a 1B behind LeBron's 1A. And, it's funny because when LeBron left Cleveland the first time, and that was before I was here, of course, everybody was angry. There were a lot of fans that hated LeBron. And while I hated the way he did it, I had no problem with LeBron leaving Cleveland. At the time, obviously, I wasn't living here, so I had no emotional attachment to the city. But ultimately, in free agency, you could do what you want to do. I think we all know the way LeBron handled it was poor. I'm sure he knows. He probably regrets it and wishes he hadn't done it that way. But at this point, he comes back, wins a championship with Kyrie. They're both huge. Everybody loves them. And within a couple of years, they're both gone. So, but what's funny now is I feel like, I hate to say forgiven because LeBron didn't really owe any forgiveness. He made a bad choice on how he did it, but ultimately he had the right to do what he did. And I feel like there's not as much anger for LeBron as there is for Kyrie, which I get because Kyrie kind of broke up the band by forcing his way out after they won. And we all felt like there was no until that point, right? There was some people that had mixed feelings about LeBron because even though he won a championship, he had left, and there's some people that didn't like him, which to me is crazy once he comes back and wins the championship. But there was some mixed feeling. I don't think there was any mixed feeling about Kyrie. I know for me personally, he was my favorite player. I loved watching Kyrie play from the moment he got here to the moment he left. And when he left, when he forced his way out, it was disappointing. I was ripping him on the air. I probably went too far. But Kyrie to this day, like, it's wild because you feel like you can't trust him. And you look at his numbers, right? They're fantastic. He does, he's gotten better as a player when he's on the court, even from his time here. Like, he's such a great ball handler, and he's improved his passing, and he's a good rebounder for a point guard, not a huge point guard. And obviously he's a great scorer. He's a magician with the ball, but he's unreliable. Right, he was unable to be on the court because he didn't get vaccinated, and I'm not going to go down that road. But of whether he should or shouldn't, everybody knows how I feel. I mean, whatever. But the point is, he wasn't there for his team. That's a fact. And he's been hurt a lot, which not all his. I mean, you can't. I don't know how much you can blame a guy for getting hurt a lot, but that's part of his MO. Right? I mean, especially in recent years, he misses chunks of time. It happens all the time. And he was on a Nets team last year that had Kevin Durant, an all-time great player, James Harden, and him. And they were, at best, mediocre. And obviously, they traded Harden for Ben Simmons, who didn't play. But they went to the playoffs with two great players and lost in the first round, which is hard to believe. And he get traded to Boston from here. They kind of, it wasn't a good fit there. And he's had virtually no success without LeBron. And now he wants to go back to the Lakers, apparently. But he was unwilling to do it for the veteran minimum. And I heard Brian Windhorst say yesterday, I don't even know if that was realistic. So he opts in with the Nets, but that's not the end of the story here, because as we know in the NBA, the superstars can get traded whenever they want. I mean, Kevin Durant's got 4 years left on his contract, but if he wants to be traded, he's going to be traded, whether you like it or not. I mean, I think the best thing in sports is when there's a balance of power between the teams and the players. I don't know that we have that in any sport. Maybe in baseball. Football, generally, the owners have so much power. Although the players have been taking some lately. And I think in basketball, it's gone too far the other way, which I get. Like, if I were a player, I'd want that power too. It's not great for the sport because there's certain teams that can't keep players. And, guys sign long-term contracts and they don't mean anything because they can force their way out. But it is what it is. And so I don't know what's going to happen with this, and I don't care what happens with the Nets. But, like, recently somebody was like, would you ever want Kyrie back on the Cavs? And my first reaction is like, no, I don't want Kyrie. And then I think about how great he was here. And I think about that he's even better of a player now when he's on the court. But then I think about how he left. I think about like some of the weird things he said over the years. And, recently Channing Frye was on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show with us, and he said, the flat earth stuff was really a bogus. He didn't really mean that. He's just messing with people. But, and Kyrie always seems miserable. And I'm like, well, I'm miserable a lot too. Should I hold that against Kyrie? I don't know. But in the end, I don't know. I think I would. I want to say I would not want Kyrie back, but every time I go to say it, there's part of my brain that says, well, I mean, if the Cavs could get Kyrie without trading any of the big three, I guess I would do it in the end. I know people are rolling their eyes. I'm rolling my eyes at myself, but if you want to win a champion, and that's the thing, and that's why Kyrie is such an enigma, because there's so many things about him that like, even former NBA players like Richard Jefferson, guys who played with him, Kendrick Perkins, saying like, yeah, I can't really trust him. He's not really reliable, but we know how great a player he is. He's one of the best point guards we've seen in recent years. He's a phenomenal talent. So I guess I would take him back. I think I would, but I don't want to trade any of the big three, but I don't know. I mean, it's not realistic. He's not coming here. They're probably better off. I don't know. Which is stupid because he's great. I go back and forth. I play this silly game in my head. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, I've got some things that we could do in baseball to make the sport better. And when I get to this, once you listen or watch the podcast, I'd like some of your reaction on Twitter to my baseball proposals. I mentioned some of these last week on UCSS, and I got some others. So I'm going to give you that when we come back right here on the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. All right. So Major League Baseball is in some trouble in the long term. The sport has a lot of issues that some they're trying to deal with. Some I don't know that they're interested in dealing with. But I think the game, in my opinion, would be better if they made some drastic changes. Now, some of these drastic changes, they've already made some drastic changes, to be fair, right? The ghost runner, if you will, at second base in extra innings was a drastic change that I didn't like at first, and I've come around. And that's why, as I've thought about it, if baseball got really bold, I think they could attract some younger fans. As I'm sure many of you know, I coach a little league team. It's a great bunch of boys, 13 kids. And they like playing baseball, but for a lot of them, it's not their number one sport. For most of them, probably. And many of them do not watch the Guardians play. I asked them about it. Some of them do, but many of them do not. Certainly not on any kind of regular basis. And across the region and really across the country, Little League numbers have gone down. And baseball has done so many things to hurt itself. Now, I know the Guardians are trying to get involved, especially in the city of Cleveland, with getting more kids playing baseball. I think this is really important. I think the Guardians and everybody, we all need to do more to give kids the opportunity, especially kids, from poor communities that may not be able to afford a glove or a bat. We all need to pitch in and help. We need more kids playing baseball. When I was a kid, and I'm sure, if you're listening, if you're my age or older, or 40 and older, let's say, like you just went to the park and played ball. That's what I did. Like, yeah, I played Little League and I played in high school, but I played most of my baseball just with a bunch of buddies, go in the park, let's play ball. Right? If we didn't have enough people, we'd play in a schoolyard, and the wall of the school would be the right fielder. You had to make all these rules. And I just, It seems like kids don't do that really anymore. And so we have less kids playing, so there's less initial interest. When I was a kid, all my friends loved baseball. We all watched baseball. And back in those days, the games were on. You didn't have to have cable. I didn't have cable until I don't even know how old I was. Probably in my early 20s before I had cable. It wasn't where I grew up in Brooklyn. We didn't even. It had nothing to do with money. I don't think cable was even available. A thing. And maybe if you were rich, I don't know. But we didn't have cable. So we had, in New York, the channels were 2 was CBS, 4 was NBC, 5 became Fox. I don't remember what it was before then. And then 7 was ABC. And then we had 2 like local channels, 9 and 11. And the Mets games were on Channel 9, or most of them. And the Yankees games were on Channel 11. Then we had PBS, and that was it. But I could watch, I couldn't see, I grew up a Cubs fan, as many of you know, and I could never watch the Cubs play unless they were playing the Mets. But I could watch the Mets and the Yankees all the time because they were on free TV, right? All I needed was an antenna. I don't think we paid anything for that, right? I mean, you bought your TV. I think we only had 1 TV, maybe 2. I think we had 1 TV when I was a kid, though. But I can't remember for sure. My memory's a little foggy. And now, even for your local team, and now that, with Bally, with the guard, none of the games are on free TV, right? I don't think there's any games. Maybe once in a while there's a game on Fox or ESPN, but that's, I'm saying ESPN as if that's free. It's not. ESPN feels like a basic channel now, but it's not, right? It's still part of a cable package. So just for your basic cable package, you have to buy. That's going to chase people out. And now they're adding things like games on Peacock, games on Apple TV. And a lot of people don't have these things. A lot of fans. Not to mention, if you really love baseball and you pay for the MLB.com package, you can't watch the Guardians game in this area. So if I pay for MLB.com and I'm a huge Guardians fan and I'm, at a restaurant or something, or whatever, I don't know. I mean, you're somewhere and I can't watch the game on my phone. I guess in a restaurant it might be on TV, whatever. But baseball has made it so hard with the blackouts for fans to watch, and that's why you're losing fans. And the teams don't care about it. They're playing to the rich customers, selling, the suites and selling, advertising and stuff like that. But you could do so much more to attract other fans. Number one, baseball has done a poor job of marketing its stars, and it's not easy because in football and basketball, the stars have a bigger impact on winning, right? As good as Jose Ramirez is, he doesn't, and Jose Ramirez has as big an impact on winning as almost any player in baseball. But it doesn't come close to the impact that LeBron James has on winning in his prime, that a great quarterback has on winning. It's just the nature of the game. It has nothing to do with Jose Ramirez. So that hurts the stars. But baseball has failed in this fighting, right? They fight every last dollar. It's almost like the owners don't want the stars to get too big because they're worried about like what's happened in basketball or to some degree with the quarterbacks in football. And it's been a huge blunder and it's really hurt the sport. We need more diversity in the sport. The amount of black players in Major League Baseball is the lowest it's been since just after the color barrier was broken. That's a shame. And that goes back to getting baseball and people in the community getting back to putting money into Little League and putting money into youth baseball in cities. That's got to happen. Okay, but other changes the league can make. The pitch clock is coming. I think it's a good idea. I think it needs to happen. We need to speed up the game. It needs to have more pace, more flow. Now, there's one change that would make a huge difference in baseball. And even I don't know if I'm ready to go here yet. But you know what? This one's crazy. This is crazy, I admit. It totally changes the game. If you made baseball 7 innings instead of 9, and I could see you listening or watching this and rolling, listen, I'm trying to save the sport. I'm trying to make it more entertaining for fans. This is honestly, I wasn't even thinking about talking about this, but it just kind of popped in my head as I'm thinking about pace and speed. If you have 7 innings, less pitching changes. I mean, think about it. If you play 7 innings, you have a pitch clock. Games are going to be 2 hours or just above 2 hours. That makes a huge difference. I think you get a lot more eyeballs on baseball. I would significantly cut down the season. I would cut down this. I'd cut about 40, 50 games off the season. You play every team in your, I think I had it. Of course, I don't have my list in front of me. I have this list. Oh, you know what? I got it on my phone. I knew I had it with me. I had the exact number. I thought I'd remember it, but now I can't remember exactly the number I had. Here we go. 132 games, 8 versus the division, 4 versus every other team, and double headers on Sunday. So that was my proposal. So you're cutting 30 games off the schedule and double headers on Sundays, which is another 23 weeks. So you're talking about cutting 7 weeks off the season. What does that mean? It means you play the World Series before the NFL season starts. These are dramatic changes. But I think if they did these things, including the crazy dramatic change, which I'm sure every diehard baseball fan, like my buddy J.N. and Menor, would hate, and it would change the record books, and it would change the stats and all that. But you know what? I'll say this to myself, a 51-year-old fan, to my buddy J.N. and Menor, who's older than that. I'm not going to pick on him for his age because his son's getting married soon. And to all the other diehard baseball fans out there, kids don't care about the stats and the records. They're not interested in that. They want to see action, excitement, and flow. That would change it. And the doubleheaders are, you get 2 games for the price of 1. That's another thing. We need more fans in the game. And there has to be a percentage of, and especially here in Cleveland where we don't sell out besides opening day, there needs to be a percentage of seats to the game that are free. Free, give them away to kids that do well in school or however you want to do it. But have 5,000 tickets every game, free. Now, you got to pay for concessions and all those other things. But get kids and get people who maybe can't afford to go to the game in the ballpark and interested in baseball and have flow and energy. There's a lot of things you can do. I got some other things, but I'm basically running out of time at this point, so maybe we'll talk about it later. If you want to react to anything I've said in this podcast, I hope you will. Send me a tweet, send me an email, whatever you got to do. Adam the Bull on Twitter, all right? Or adamthebullfan@gmail.com. Send it my way. I hope you've enjoyed the second edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. I'll be back again on Wednesday. Who knows what will happen on the Deshaun Watson front. It's been a lot of fun. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. See ya.